we are less than 1 week away from the primaries in the state of Texas. Now, this is important heading into the Democratic primary for certain, where it's almost certain that we nominate a Democratic nominee for this Texas Senate race. This is going to be a fascinating race as it plays out into the November elections, but this Senate primary is just the beginning. I also want to make note from the beginning of this video as well that I'm not talking about the Republican primary in this specific video due to the fact that I have a personal theory that the Republican primary is going to head into a runoff race between the top two candidates, which I personally believe are going to be John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. That race will take place later in May, if that is the case, like my theory, like I personally believe, I should say that. So I wanted to make that note from the very beginning. I know could be some of you in the comments saying, well, you already talked about this race just a couple of weeks ago. Why are you talking about it again? But it's really important that we talk about this and talk about it heading into next week. And honestly, there is a probability that I make another race, or I make another video on this race before next Tuesday, because it really is going to be an important primary for Senate control, an important primary for Texans, and this is really going to shape the trajectory of the Senate playing field heading into 2026. So, with that said, I want to go ahead and start by talking about this new poll that Jasmine Crockett is leading James Talarico by double digits in the Senate Democratic primary. So this is really fascinating, but also not surprising. If you watched my video before, I also reported that Jasmine Crockett was leading in those polls at that time, and she's continued to do so. So with that said, Jasmine Crockett has ran a race very interesting to Texas. She's already a congresswoman from the state, so she already has some sort of pretty high name recognition across a national stage for those that pay attention to politics. And then, of course, in Texas, she has a name recognition as well, whereas James Talarico's had to work a little bit harder for it, but he's had a little bit more time to, given that he announced his candidacy earlier on in 2025, where Jasmine Crockett didn't announce until December of last year. So, with all of that noted, and the point that I'm not talking about the Republican primary in this race, let's go ahead and dive into this video and talk about some of the latest polling out of this race and where this could send the trajectory of the Senate. So, according to a recent poll, Crockett is leading James Talarico by 12 points. 56% for Crockett, 44% for James Talarico. If you dig deeper into this poll, you'll find that it was from 369 registered voters across the state of Texas. Now, this is important because the size of this poll here is quite small in my opinion. I'm not saying it's an outlier poll, but I certainly am a little skeptical to fully believe it, of course, given the small amount of voters that were polled. But with that said, James Talarico has ran a really great campaign in the state of Texas, as well as Jasmine Crockett, who have both fought each other to some extent. While Talarico's tried to remain respectful, there's been some infighting there. Negative ads ran against one another and stuff like that, which has caused some chaos. And I know many Democrats are looking forward to ending this primary race because of the heat that it has caused. So, when in less than a week we will officially likely know who the Democratic nominee is for this race in the Senate seat for the Democrats heading into the November elections. This also is important because that person is going to have a head start against Republicans who are likely to not know who their candidate is until May. Of course, I could be wrong on my personal prediction with that, and if I am, I apologize, but that is where I stand at this moment at least. So, with that said, Jasmine Crockett, according to polling, leading by 12 points. We've talked about University of Houston, or I'm not sure if we talked about these polls or not, but we'll go ahead and run through them real fast. Crockett +8, Slingshot Strategies, Crockett +1, Hit strategies, Crockett plus 13, Emerson College, Tallarico plus 9, which was the last really good poll for Tallarico, had him at 47% to Jasmine Crockett's 38% between 413 registered voters. So let me go through here and look. Yeah, of course, if you look at some of these other polling, you'll see 550, over 1,000, over 1,000 for some of these polling, which I would personally believe is a little more accurate from the sampling size. And I think that's important as well when looking at the polling in this race. Of course, the hit strategies that had Crockett up by 13 points, it says, was a Democratic sponsor, or Jasmine Crockett Democratic sponsor. So that obviously could, I suppose, have some bias towards it as well. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into talking about the early vote status in this race. Now, this is fascinating. I haven't even talked about this because since I made my last video, they have began early voting in the state of Texas. And what's really fascinating about this is that Democrats are outperforming Republicans in early voting in Texas. This is the first time that has ever happened from the knowledge that I've gained from talking to people. This is the first time that that's happened. So really important note there. But furthermore, let's dive into these results and where we stand heading into next week. So according to the 2024 final polling, it's also important to note that I believe Democrats and Republicans, let me double check. No, just Democrats have outperformed their total number of votes cast in their primary through early voting. So according to 2022, 139% of the ballots already cast were that of 2022's final result. In 2024, 145.6% of the current ballots cast in early voting in Texas are that of the 2024 final result. So also really important to note that Democrats are overwhelmingly outperforming Republicans in this early vote margin. Not only that, but also their margins from years prior in races similar. In 2024 when Colin Allred was the Democratic nominee. So important to note, of course, this is a contentious primary between Tallarico and Crockett. So that's also important to note. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless that Democrats are performing so well, especially when Republicans also have a primary between Ken Paxton, John Cornyn, and Wesley Hunt. And they still aren't getting that vote share out. Of course, Republicans, some will argue, are more likely to vote on Election Day. I think stats do point to that. But at the same token, the fact that they're not matching those numbers from 2024 or 2022 is important to note as well. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into another poll conducted that was a Tallarico internal. I also wanted to make note of it, of course. Take this with what you will. Of course, like I said at the beginning, it's a Tallarico internal. From Impact Research, February 10th through the 12th, 800 likely voters, Tallarico at 47%, plus 12, Jasmine Crockett 43%, minus 9. 9% say they were not sure. This is, of course, again, Tallarico internal, according to interactive polls on X. So take that with what you will, but also interesting nonetheless. Polymarket also has this race in a margin where Polymarket believes that Tallarico is going to be the nominee. It's my fault for not having that pulled up on the screen to be able to show you guys at this moment. But nonetheless, I wanted to make note of that as well. Polymarket does have, last I checked anyways, which was not long ago, Tallarico was up in the Polymarket standings as well. So people are betting on Tallarico. Polling is somewhat mixed, but seems to be more in favorable of Jasmine Crockett. And then there's a few polls that say Tallarico's got it. So we'll see what happens next week. I think it's going to be really fascinating, and we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think that this is going to be a really important primary race for the Democrats heading into November. And either way, Democrats have an uphill battle between whoever the Republican nominee is in this 2026 Senate race. I can't remember if I already mentioned in this video because I had to refilm a video earlier, But if I haven't already, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm considering doing a live stream for this race, for the Texas Senate race, next week on Tuesday. Let me know if you're interested in that or not. If not, that's totally fine. But if you are, then I will try and see if I can set up some sort of live stream and perhaps maybe go live to cover this. I don't want to make any promises, but maybe we could do something like that. We'll have to see. And of course, it depends on if you guys want that or not. Let me know in the comments below. And with that, let me know what you think. Do you think that Jasmine Crockett is going to pull this over the top, like a lot of the polling suggests? Or do you believe, like the markets are saying, that James Tallarico is going to pull up an upset compared to polling and win this primary? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to read through your thoughts and have conversation with you. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.